Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back to 3 News Now.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back
to 3 News Now.
It is Monday, December 23rd.
It is Monday, December 23rd, 2019.
Christmas. If you
We
have
are
your last
2
minute
days
shopping you
out
need to
from
get
Christmas.
done,
If you have
now's
your
the
last
time
minute
for you to do
shopping
that.
you need to get done, now's the time for you to do that. All right, now we're going to let you know what top headlines, trending topics we're going to be covering for you ahead of our TV shows tonight. Of course, we have our 6 p.m. What Matters Most TV show, 7 p.m. Front Row, and 11 p.m. What's Next. These are the headlines we're going to be covering for you today. There are Christmas ale recipe rumors that we will be debunking before we bring in 3 News sports analyst Ben Axelrod to talk to us about Cleveland Indians signing second baseman Cesar Hernandez and what Odell Beckham Jr. had to say to explain himself about that exchange he had with Cleveland Browns head coach Freddie Kitchens during the Cleveland Browns' loss to Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. And then we will be talking about our We Know You Can segment, hashtag We Know You Can. This is our dose of Monday motivation for you. Today's topic is 4 tips from a psychologist on how to overcome impostor syndrome. If you don't know what that is, we'll explain that for you as well. And then send a congratulations to 3 News Austin Love and Tiffany Tarpley, which we will let you know what that's all about at the end of the show. They are making the news today. All right, first up, Christmas ale recipe rumors. It's sort of a kind of long-standing rumor. You know, everybody kind of asks, how did you think the Christmas ale batch tasted this year? And along with that comes the thought that maybe the recipe changes from time to time. One review described the flavor this year specifically as like a cinnamon-tinged chocolate-covered cherry. And Dave Chudowski actually sat down with the company's new CEO, Mark King, to ask him exactly what's up with the recipe, if it does change, if there is any variation from year to year. So Mark joined the company in October, and he told Dave Chudowski, it does not change. It's exactly the same from year to year. And if you all remember, I was actually at the Christmas Ale First Pour back in October. When I was there, I had the opportunity to talk to Great Lakes Brewing Company's Adam Rittersbach. He told me the same thing. They have used the exact same recipe since first brewing Christmas ale in 1992. And here's a fun fact for you. There are over 6,600 pounds each of ginger and cinnamon in the batches of Christmas ale, and over 2,000 pounds of honey, not just any honey, it's all natural honey from St. Charles, Michigan, in each batch. So those are just a couple of the things that give it its very unique taste, which is the same from year to year. Now, here's a little tip just from me to you. If you don't drink it this way, I would highly recommend having the cinnamon sugar rim around your cup when you take a sip of it. Just brings out those flavors just a little bit more. All right, in just a moment, we're going to be bringing up 3 News sports analyst Ben Axelrod. We have 2 different topics that we'll be talking with him about today. First, we'll be taking a look at the Cleveland Indians roster, which is ever-changing at this time of year. And then, of course, we're going to talk to him about what happened on Sunday at First Energy Stadium at the Browns' final home game of the regular season, final home game of the season. They are officially out of the playoffs after losing to the Baltimore Ravens 31-15, which was a disappointment for a lot of people. We had a lot of high expectations this season, and it just didn't go our way. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, first up, we want to talk about what's going on with the Cleveland Indians roster.
Yes, they signed a second baseman today, Cesar Hernandez. He is, it's a 1-year contract for a little over $6 million. So the expectation is they're signing him. He's going to be their starting second baseman. That was a big hole in their lineup. Jason Kipnis, who's been their starting second baseman for the last 9 seasons, is a free agent. And there wasn't really a lot of expectation that he'd be back with the team, but that was always kind of a fallback option. I think a lot of people thought for the Indians. He didn't have a terrible season last year, but from all indications, this is an improvement, and we'll see what Cesar Hernandez has to bring to the lineup this season.
So there's been a lot of trade talks, of course. We were but thinking if we were going to get any news about trading Francisco Lindor, that was going to be this weekend.
Yeah, there was the report from Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic on Friday that the Indians had reached this crucial point, and they had asked teams over the weekend to submit their final proposals. And I think, if you can read between the lines on it, I don't think it's a coincidence probably that the Hernandez signing happened today. I think to trade Francisco Lindor and perhaps Mike Clevenger as well, who's been linked to those deals, would be such a massive move that I don't think the Indians want that really hanging over them for any longer than it needs to be. So it doesn't, I'd say right now the chances of them trading Francisco Lindor this offseason have decreased significantly. And I think the final proposal was about, how do they proceed from here? Are they proceeding as if they have Francisco Lindor, or are they moving on in a different direction? I think they're operating now under the assumption that they have Francisco Lindor, and I think signing Cesar Hernandez was a big part of that.
You said, so that fills what we thought, might have been a hole without Kipnis at second base. How is the roster shaping up? Do we feel like we have a solid squad? Is this the team we're going to see going into spring training?
They still have some holes in the outfield, and we've been doing our all-decade voting on WKYC.com for the Indians all-decade team, and it was kind of jarring going through this last decade of outfielders. It seems like other than Michael Brantley, and really Shin-Soo Choo earlier in the decade, like the outfield has been a big hole for this team. They just haven't had a lot of consistent production in the outfield, and I think entering 2020 in the new decade, that's not really any different. So that's, they feel good about their pitching staff. And adding Cesar Hernandez, that means Jose Ramirez stays at third base. There was some speculation he could be moving to second base. Okay. If maybe they went in a different direction and signed a third baseman, they could always move Jose Ramirez to second base. So they feel good about the infield. They feel great about the pitching staff. But Yasiel Puig is a free agent, and I don't think he'll probably be back. And the outfield, really was inconsistent last season, even with Yasiel Puig. So, I think outfield is now what you look to. If they're going to add anything, I would imagine it's going to be in that outfield.
Okay, well, we'll definitely be keeping a look on that. Ben did write a story on WKYC.com. I just dropped that link in the comments so that you can check that out about the Cesar Hernandez acquisition. Now let's switch gears and let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. Unfortunately, we did lose yesterday, 31-15 to the Baltimore Ravens. Something that people were catching their attention was the heated exchange that OBJ had with Freddie Kitchens on the sidelines. Yeah. What happened there?
It was easy, and I did the same thing. And when we first, wrote about it yesterday, it was easy to draw a link between what happened with Jarvis Landry last week and the heated discussion with Freddie Kitchens during the Cardinals game, and the heated discussion between Odell Beckham and Freddie Kitchens yesterday during the Ravens game. I don't think they were necessarily the same thing, though. Jarvis Landry said he was, telling Freddie, I want the ball, come get me the ball. And that's not what was going on with Odell. Odell's exchange actually came after he caught a 3-yard touchdown pass. So he wasn't upset about not getting the ball. It was more, him and Freddie both had kind of different explanations for it, but I think if you piece some things together, I think Odell was venting about the officials and the way the Ravens were defending him, and he had picked up that taunting penalty in the first quarter, and I think he had been warned either by an official or Freddie that if he gets another penalty, an unsportsmanlike penalty, he was going to be ejected from the game. So I think there are some links you can link those two things together there. So it wasn't necessarily the same thing. I don't think this was another case of one of the star wide receivers going after Freddie Kitchens like we saw with Jarvis Landry last week, but I also, perception is everything, and this is, again, a second week where, there was a heated exchange between Freddie Kitchens and one of his star players. So make of that what you will, but we're going to be talking a lot about Freddie Kitchens and his job status heading into this regular season finale and 2019 finale against the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday.
Going back to what you said about OBJ getting that personal foul in the first quarter, that would have been a 22-yard reception. That 15-yard penalty negated it. Watching it in the stands at the game on Sunday, I didn't really get it. I didn't really understand. So can you break it down for me? Why did he get a personal foul for that?
Yes.
He went like this.
So he caught the ball and he wound up on the Ravens sideline after catching the ball, and he stood up and did his Little Rascals, alfalfa wave. And he's been doing that all season. Actually, one of my Twitter followers found a link where I had tweeted about it, I think from the first or second game, tweeted out a Little Rascals gif after Odell had made the reception. So he's definitely been doing that all season, but it drew a taunting penalty, I think because he was in the middle of the Ravens sideline. I can't recall him doing that in the middle of an opposing team's sideline before. It may have happened or it may have come close, but, Jarvis Landry drew a taunting penalty earlier in the season, and that penalty was a little more, cut and dry, where he definitely was taunting the opponent. I forget which game that was. I think maybe it must have been the Bills game, but that was a more egregious one. This one seemed like it was a judgment call, but, just another, self-inflicted mistake, self-inflicted penalty that the Browns could have gone without yesterday.
Sure. Watching it, the first half of the first quarter, I thought, there's a chance that we are going to beat the Ravens. There's a chance that we are going to break this 10-game winning streak for them. That did not happen.
No. And yeah, that's, they have the 6-0 lead, and with just about 2 minutes to go, less than 2 minutes to go in the first half, and then next thing you know, the Ravens are up 14-6 with the ball coming back their way after halftime. Just total clock mismanagement by Freddie Kitchens. He admitted that today when he was talking to reporters out in Berea, doing his Monday address, and that's definitely one you'd like to have back. And yeah, I don't know if the Browns, if they go into the locker room up 6-0 or down 7-6, if that game plays out any differently. But you make that many mistakes. We saw it earlier when they played the Patriots. You make that many mistakes against a good team like the Ravens, like the Patriots, it's going to come back to bite you more times than not.
So unfortunately, it does not look like we will be finishing the season. We won't be finishing the season better than 500.
No, it actually clinched yesterday. They're 6-9 now. If they beat the Bengals on Sunday, they go 7-9. That's actually a worse record than a year ago when they were 7-8-1 because of the tie they had in the opener against the Steelers. So, for a season, where a lot of us were thinking playoffs are bust and that this was going to end the 16-year playoff drought, not only do they not make the playoffs, they wind up with a worse record than they had the year before.
Here's hoping we can at least pull out a win for the final game of the season. Ever the optimist.
Well, if they lose, they get a top 10 pick. So there could be incentive either way. So
either way, it's a win.
We can look at it that way, sure.
That's how I want to look at it. All right. Thank you, Ben. We do have Ben's story on OBJ's response to what people were saying about that exchange with Kitchens up on WKYC.com. We dropped that in the link so you can check that out.
Sure.
Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to take a look at our hashtag We Know You Can segment now. This is our weekly dose of Monday motivation where we invite you to share your stories if you need a little extra boost of motivation or inspiration, or if you want to provide that for someone else. Today we're taking a look at something called impostor syndrome. And if you're not familiar with impostor syndrome, according to Jeffrey Janata, who is the director of psychology at University Hospital's Cleveland Medical Center, impostor syndrome is defined as feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evidence of success. This is that feeling, when great things are coming to you, you can't believe the luck you're having, even though you've put in the hard work for it, and you sit there and you look in the mirror and you think, people are going to figure out that I'm a failure, that I'm just an average person. And this is very common for highly successful people. This is what Dr. Janata said. Highly successful individuals seem particularly prone to imposter phenomena as they struggle with chronic self-doubt. Interestingly, it does not seem linked to low self-esteem or low self-confidence, but may in fact be more related to perfectionism and the tendency to compare oneself negatively to others. I will tell you what, a quote that I try to remember often is, comparison is the thief of joy. So that's sort of tangentially related to this too. If you compare yourself to where people are in their journey, you might lose track of how far you've come in your own journey, and then you might start to experience some of those feelings of self-doubt. So I asked Dr. Janata, what are some ways that people can overcome this sort of chronic feeling of being a failure or an imposter, that you're going to get found out for not being as great and not being able to live up to the hype. So this is what Dr. Janata said. First, acknowledge that it is not uncommon to have self-doubt in the context of high achievement. Second, recognize your expertise by trying to make a realistic assessment of your abilities. Third, try to balance your emphasis on flaws with acknowledgement of accomplishments. And then finally, talk with a psychologist or other mental health practitioner to help change those patterns of thinking that underlie those imposter feelings. So I want to circle back to trying to balance your emphasis on flaws with acknowledgement of accomplishments. Sometimes you got to be your own hype man. You got to look in the mirror and you got to say, these are the things I've done. I have accomplished these things, and really sort of give yourself that boost of, gravitas or whatever it is that makes you feel good about the things that you've done. And then hopefully, if you're not able to do that for yourself, hopefully you have someone in your life who can point those things out to you. All right, that's just our little weekly We Know You Can. We'll be back with that next week as always. And before we go, I want to share congratulations to 3 News' Austin Love and also 3 News' Tiffany Tarpley. Austin Love has been named of one of Cleveland Magazine's 30 most interesting people in the issue out today. And Tiffany Tarpley is also featured in the magazine with a feature on her very unique recent wedding to to Jason Russell. I believe that's his name. Sorry if I'm getting that wrong, Tiffany. I just had a momentary mind lapse. So check that out. That's Cleveland Magazine. That is out on stands right now. Thank you very much for joining us here on 3 News Now. You, as always, can join us here on the live stream on Facebook, on YouTube, on WKYC.com, and our 3 News app. If you aren't already, make sure you like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WKYC.channel3 and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find that at youtube.com/user/WKYC-TV. And while you're there, make sure you click the bell so that you get notifications every single time we go live so that you can always be a part of our afternoon updates. Let's keep this conversation going. You could reach out to me directly at _Stephanie Haney. That's on Twitter and Instagram to let me know if you have ideas for stories you'd like us to talk about or if you have comments on anything we covered today. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great Monday. Because of the holiday, I will see you back next week on Monday, December 30th. We'll see you then. I'm Stephanie Haney.